The twin suns of Valtrian sank behind the silver ridges, painting the sky in shades of amber and violet. The great palace of the alien king stood silent, its crystal towers dimmed as if the world itself shared his grief. King Terran sat upon the throne of Lightstone, his eyes empty, his crown dull with sorrow. His daughter, Princess Lyra, the pride of Valtrian's royal fleet, had been missing for 3 long cycles after the battle at the edge of the Orion Rift. Every report said her cruiser had fallen, consumed in a burst of plasma fire during the clash against the enemy swarm. No escape pod had been detected. The king had sent countless scouts across sectors, but nothing ever returned with hope. Valtrian was a world of order, discipline, and strength. Its people did not show weakness. Yet even the most hardened generals lowered their heads whenever the king walked by, for his sadness could be felt like a silent storm in the air. He had lost his only child, the one who was supposed to inherit the legacy of peace he had fought to create. The queen had already passed to the stars years ago. Now Terran ruled alone, surrounded by silence, burdened by memories of laughter that once filled the palace halls. Then one night, as the moons aligned, the palace sensors caught an unusual signal from the outer ring. It was faint, distorted like a whisper carried by cosmic dust. The technicians worked frantically to trace it. After moments of confusion, a young officer turned to the king and said that the code belonged to Lyra's ship. For the first time in years, Terran rose from his throne with sudden energy. He ordered the launch of a search craft at once. The vessel soared across the clouds, breaking through layers of mist and cosmic debris until it reached a lonely asteroid field. There, in the shadow of shattered rocks, drifted a small transport ship patched with unfamiliar metal. Its engines were weak, its hull scarred, but it was alive. As the royal guards approached, the ship's hatch opened slowly. Out stepped Princess Lyra, her armor worn, her hair tied back in a rough braid, her eyes burning with the same fierce light that once made her father proud. But she was not alone. Beside her stood a human, tall and weary, dressed in a pilot suit marked with faded insignias from Earth. When Terran saw her through the palace gates hours later, he could not believe what he was seeing. His daughter, once thought lost among the stars, stood before him alive, breathing, smiling faintly. He rushed to her without care for ceremony. The guards turned away, pretending not to see the tears that welled in their king's eyes. He touched her shoulder as if fearing she might vanish again. Lyra bowed her head, whispering that she had returned because of a promise. The human behind her stood still, unsure of what to do, his hand hovering near his chest in respect. The court gathered quickly. Whispering spread through the hall. Who was this human who dared to walk beside the royal heir of Valtrian? Terran looked at the stranger with suspicion. He was smaller than the Valtrians, his skin pale, his eyes bright with a strange kind of courage. Terran asked who he was and what business he had with his daughter. Lyra stepped forward before the human could speak. She told her father that his name was Adam, a pilot from a distant world who had saved her life when her ship was destroyed. She said the two had survived together for months, stranded on a deserted moon, fighting storms and scavengers until they built a signal strong enough to reach home. The hall was silent for a long time. Then Terran's voice echoed through the chamber. He asked why she had brought a human to Valtrian. Humans were known among the stars as reckless wanderers, curious but fragile, always venturing into wars that were not theirs. Lyra looked at her father calmly and said that humans might be fragile, but their hearts were strong. She said Adam had shown her something no weapon or strategy could teach, the power of persistence and compassion. On that barren moon, when she was wounded and ready to surrender to the cold, he had carried her through the storm. He had given her the will to survive. Without him, she would never have returned. The Council of Elders murmured in disapproval. They whispered about the risk of bringing an outsider to their world, the shame of showing weakness before the human race. Terran silenced them with a single gesture. He turned to Adam and asked if what his daughter said was true. Adam nodded and replied that he had only done what any decent being would. He said he had lost his own crew when their exploration ship was destroyed in the same battle. Finding Lyra had given him a reason to keep fighting too. He smiled faintly, saying that survival had made them both equal, no matter where they came from. For a moment, the king saw something familiar in the human's eyes, the same kind of courage that once burned in his own youth. He dismissed the council and told his daughter to rest. That night, while the city lights shimmered below the palace, Terran stood alone on his balcony, looking out at the horizon. He could not sleep. He thought about the stories he had heard of humans, their wars, their inventions, their stubborn hope. He wondered if perhaps the universe was larger and kinder than he had imagined. When he turned, he saw his daughter watching the stars from a distance, the human beside her. They spoke softly, their words carried by the wind. Terran listened without meaning to. They talked of rebuilding, of uniting worlds instead of dividing them. And for the first time since her mother's passing, Lyra's voice held joy. Days passed. The court remained uneasy about the human's presence, but the people of Valtrian began to whisper stories of the princess who returned from the dead with a companion from another world. Merchants spoke of it in markets, children played games about it, poets began to sing verses of the human and the star princess. Soon, curiosity replaced suspicion. Adam helped their engineers repair broken ships with ideas drawn from human technology. His knowledge of adaptability impressed even the strictest scientists. He spoke respectfully, never boasting, and always gave credit to the Valtrians for their wisdom. Slowly, the walls between species began to fade. One afternoon, during a council meeting, an emergency signal arrived. The same enemy swarm that had once attacked Lyra's fleet was moving toward Valtrian again. Their ships were faster now, their numbers greater. Panic spread through the command center. Terran called for defense preparations. Lyra volunteered to lead the first line of resistance, but this time she did not go alone. Adam stood beside her, ready to pilot one of the modified interceptors they had built together. When the battle began above the clouds, the sky turned into a storm of light. Lyra's voice filled the comms clear and steady, guiding her squadron through waves of fire. Adam flew in perfect sync with her, his reflexes sharp, his instincts human yet precise. They fought like twin comets across the battlefield. At one moment, their formation broke, and an enemy cruiser targeted the palace itself. Adam saw it first. Without waiting for orders, he dove his ship into the path of the plasma beam, redirecting its trajectory with a burst from his thrusters. The explosion lit the heavens like a new sun. For a heartbeat, all thought he was gone. But Adam's ship reappeared from the smoke, battered but flying. Lyra's cry of relief echoed across the comms. Together they led the final strike, pushing the enemy swarm back into the void. When the battle ended, the skies of Valtrian were once again peaceful. The people cheered from every tower, calling the names of their heroes. And when the royal fleet returned, Terran himself met them at the landing bay. He walked toward Adam and extended his hand, a gesture never seen from the king before. He thanked him for saving not only his daughter but his world. He declared before the council that the age of isolation was over. From that day forward, Valtrian would form an alliance with Earth, built on trust, respect, and the courage shared by two souls who had faced death together. That evening, the palace held a celebration unlike any before. The halls glowed with crystal lights and music from both worlds filled the air. Lyra stood beside her father, her armor replaced by a silver gown that shimmered like starlight. Adam wore a formal uniform, awkward but proud. When Terran raised his cup, silence fell over the crowd. He spoke not as a ruler but as a father. He said that sometimes the universe takes away what we love only to return it in a form we never expected. He looked at his daughter and then at Adam, saying that courage and kindness were not bound by species. The room erupted in cheers, voices mixing from alien and human throats alike. Later that night, Lyra walked out onto the balcony where the stars burned quietly. Adam joined her, carrying 2 small cups of glowing drink from the feast. They stood in silence for a while, watching the twin moons rise. Lyra turned to him and said that when she had thought she would die on that deserted moon, he had given her something stronger than hope. He had given her a reason to believe that unity could exist even in a fractured galaxy. Adam smiled, saying she had done the same for him. The air was soft, the night endless, the universe vast but somehow smaller now. Far behind them, King Terran watched from the shadow of the doorway. He felt peace return to his heart, a feeling he had long forgotten. His daughter was not only alive but changed, stronger, wiser, and carrying a light that could guide worlds. And though he would never admit it aloud, he felt gratitude toward the human who had taught her what no war or victory ever could. From that day, Valtrian and Earth shared their knowledge, their fleets, and their dreams. Together they built